How's it going? It's bigSHow, theGod here. Thought I'd do a podcast on what I do is a mindset on learning. And I guess the energy and the process I go through to learn something. And for me, it seems to take a bit more than I used to. I used to think I learned things quite quickly, but it works out that's not true. I might have a reasonable comprehension of some things, but I notice taking in something versus understanding what's being said or read or researched doesn't mean I've got the whole picture, Part of that could be just the recalling of it is a struggle, which unfortunately is part of the learning, because if you're taking on lots of information and you can't recall it, then it isn't much good to you. So you have to use tools. And I think the trap I had or still have is because I can understand what you're saying in the moment. I think that's good enough, and for some maybe, but for me it's not. And so I have to use tools and skills and other disciplines to support the learning process for me. The first obvious one is writing it down. And that's only the start. And then because there's problems with writing things down. A, am I listening when I'm writing it down? B, am I selectively writing it down? So it gets quite complicated just listening and capturing. But that's where practice comes in to the same. Practice reviewing, all that sort of stuff. So it's been a bit of a journey for me to get to this self-awareness of what it takes for me to actually learn something, and what does learning something actually mean. I get a bit I've learned something implies you're going to do something different, or you're going to change, or it's going to influence you differently, or it's going to have you think about something differently that you used to think about. That's what it means to me, I think. So one of the bits I go through a bit is the processes I try to go through with learning. So when I'm listening in a meeting or understanding, I'm trying to pick out the parts I need to action for myself, obviously, by writing that down. and being disciplined about that. And then reviewing it, reciting it, and then actioning, and then continuing on and doing it again, right? Now, that's all part of the process of learning. But a lot of that there was just doing, and was separate again, in my opinion, from the actual learning part. So the piece I wanted to get to here was to actually learn something. You have to break through your own mindset. What do I mean by that? You got to realize your mind doesn't want to learn something except for getting energy, I guess. So you have to train and realize with self-awareness that you have to break through and use more energy in the process of learning than your body mind wants to use. So what I mean by that? Well, it's kind of a known thing, what cognitive bias. Cognitive bias? Should I explain cognitive bias? Cognitive bias is where the I wrote it down. How am I going to explain it? So it's mental shortcuts to making decisions. So to save energy, we don't need to take on everything on board that's repeated all the time. So a cognitive bias in that would be just to make a decision quick. Why would you prolong a decision it takes more energy when you prolong a decision? Or when you make a judgment that's using more energy every time. So a bias in that would be just to go with the last way you did it. It's how habits are formed. That saves energy if it's just a habit. Habits save energy. Even if the habit's using energy, it's saving energy in a thinking perspective, because now that's energy I didn't waste, because I'm just going to do it anyway. Not thinking about going out to the car and driving and opening the door and closing the door. Not thinking about any of that, right? So that's energy saved in every action, even though I'm going to physically walk out to the car. It took energy, but you're compounding it by using more energy just to go do that task. I hope that explains what I think cognitive biases. So the question in there is if you're using cognitive biases in there, it's an error in thinking over time when you're making specific decisions, or maybe bigger decisions, or stuff that actually needs or requires some more energy put into it. driving to the shops right now probably doesn't require a lot of energy. The decision was to go get some eggs or something. Not a lot of energy spent on that, even though I might walk there or I might think that use energy. It's no more mental energy spent on that. Just a little trigger saying, go get it. So how do we stay? So how, knowing that I need to, when I'm making decisions, it requires more energy. So what tools do I have to employ or execute to use more energy to learn, to break through the mental biases and to save energy? Just have an answer. So an answer, done then, isn't it? Saving energy, isn't it? But there's more than one answer. I don't want to know the other 5 answers. I want the one answer. Answer's there. We just go do that. And that's the point, right? Which is why science, to me, supports this type of supports using energy for thinking, for experiments, and things of that nature. So now that we know it takes energy, or more, takes energy to learn. I mean, that's not enough. How do we combat that? Well, we have to practice using the energy on thinking. And then we have to probably have awareness of where our biases will show up that would always want to reserve and save energy by making a quick judgment, decision, assumption, all that stuff. Because every time we go down to a piece and we're not sure or clear on that, that's going to take energy and the mind's not going to want it. Correct. If it doesn't know something there, it goes, oh, how am I going to find out some more about that? And like, oh man, I haven't got time, that's too much. So I don't know the person, that industry, that's an area I'm not familiar with. Well, we both know if you're more familiar with that, your decision making is going to be better. Yeah, we can't know everything. So now we're relying on the other people, machine, whatever it is that is responsible for that piece. So then what's required in there is my communication good enough, is my listening good enough to try and get more information out. And then is that one information source. Is that enough? It probably isn't. So I need more energy to go to more information sources on a subject that I think I already know the answer to based on this one, right? But that's the bit I've got to keep breaking down. It's going, who says this resource is your truth? And don't get me wrong, that can be it can be true that this was the best one, but you have to do the other bits as well to realize that is the one. You see what I'm saying here? So when all your decisions now are taking a lot more energy, because I've got to go and compare, research, learn to a degree. And then on that, at the end of the day, we're only doing this for certain pieces of whatever it is we want to go and learn, right? So it takes energy, it takes time, it takes a process. So what do we do knowing this? Well, for me, it would make more sense then to spend the energy on things or people that are most important to me, I would have thought, to start. Or at least things I perceive as the most important to me right now. And knowing what I know now would be the starting point. And then the learning process through that would lead me, I would have thought, at least if it starts to widen. So let's do this. So if I go, what's the most important thing to me? And if I'm asked that question or I think about that logically, the most important thing is we want to use a big word, health. Me being alive, I would say, is the most important thing, right? So if we want to be really singular, I would argue oxygen is probably the most important thing right now out of everything. Every moment, this atmosphere is probably the most important. Is that true? Yes, oxygen. I'd argue that, even though, and see there, with the way our minds work, we don't even, I don't need to consider that, right? It just happens. Okay, well, if I'm freaking underwater and there's water coming in, filling up a thing, it doesn't take me long to realize this water is going to be a problem. It's actually not the water, it's the oxygen that I'm not going to have soon. The water doesn't bother me. It's only when I'm under it for too long, correct? Which is a lack of oxygen. So giving me oxygen is the key, not the water. Although the water's going to have the same effect. So when you get to that bit, okay, there's that. Let's move that along. Next. And then you go next. You go oxygen, maybe you go oxygen. And I'd argue, what are we going to go? I think oxygen, and I think heat, shelter. I think heat and shelter is really important, quick. And water. There's not much in heat and water. can actually last longer without water than I think you can. I think heat is more important. I watch those survival shows. And so, you can go to that granular level and get that covered. And we keep getting more and more covered. So I've got that, got shelter, got heat. Then we've got where we start going to. And then from a health perspective, we can start getting quite abstract and layered to what does that mean to ascertain where you are now. I always do this, where I am now, under that model of what I'm considering what's most important to me is me, my health, me living, breathing, and then we can get even more as having the energy, requirements and needs to learn more, having the energy to go to work or exercise or to research, and then having the energy to communicate, to build relationships, all that stuff. Well, interestingly enough, it starts from those blocks I just mentioned from a survival stance, but they're actually required to learn more, weirdly. So they start getting connected when you go right down into the singular. If I'm dead, it's a pretty simple argument to say, well, the rest ain't going to make much difference. So now we're alive. Now then, what am I doing now that I'm alive? What influence can I have? What decisions can I make? Choices can I work through? And then so being aware of cognitive biases is actually quite powerful. Actually, it just is. So we've established that. That takes energy. We're at a level where we are here, and let's just stick with me and my health, and me forecasting, thinking, having wants or needs based on measurements and where I'm at. We can say, well, I'd like to be here. And if I do X, Y, Z, based on my knowledge and research and awareness and that stuff, I'll be here if I do those. If I don't do those, I'll either be here, or if I continue, the worst part about that, if I continue what I'm doing now, you may be finding that you're doing that. If you don't measure, then you don't realize it. It's back to the thing again. Your cognitive bias is actually remembering what you were before here. It's a bit like fitness. You do a fitness test, and you run or you jump or something like that. So you run, it measures your heartbeat and your rate and your thing, and it has some numbers. Cognitive bias over 3 months that's still your number. Those are still what you are. Well, we don't know that. Yeah. I weigh that. I can run that. I can do that. Who knows? Hold on. You need to test it again. And you test it again. Now, there's reasonable assumptions you can make, is that if you have continued what got you the measurement here, that you'd be the same here. You can make that assumption. But if you haven't done any of the things that have got you to there, you will see that it'll be a declining. It wouldn't make sense that your fitness improved while you've been lying around. It will at best stay the same. At best. And staying the same, depending on how you measure something, you may be down here somewhere on a fitness scale. If you're on a fitness scale and you're getting 2 out of 10 on a fitness scale, maybe that won't shift. No, I've maintained my 2 out of 10. Right. And so, A, we don't measure it anymore, which is generally how I would work. Or B, think I'm still a 2. When the fact may even be worse. Now I may be a 1.8 and getting lower and declining more and more. So yeah, so that's that piece. So we got systematic errors in thinking. We got mental shortcuts to making decisions and judgments. And I'll tell you the truth, that even took me a long time to kind of comprehend. And it wasn't until I practiced it a few times, use it, see it, self-aware. Actually, even though I got it, yeah, I understood it. But then how is that applying to me in real time now? It wasn't until I was starting to reverse habits that I had that I realized the amount of energy that was required to do it. Not until I managed the actual whole process through. Because at a split second, my mind is ready to save energy. It's ready now. It's ready to save energy. Don't want to be thinking about the next subject. It's freaking more energy. It's already ready to switch to something else that's not consuming more energy. So something difficult, something that's hard to learn, something makes sense. The mind and the body is saying, we don't need to do that. Let's save the energy. Let's freaking watch TV instead, man. It's saving energy right now. So if you thinking about some research paper or debating two subjects based on this, or making a decision about what I should do here versus here, and the rationale and the reasons and all this carry on, watch a movie, man. Energy saved. Beautiful. So you see, it's ready to do it at a moment's notice. So it's one that I picked up really well. I think it's probably the most relevant for me. I think so. I went over the most important thing, and there you go again. All roads lead to me. I do. Most important. It's always me first, right? It's that crash victim style. We're in an aeroplane losing. You got to save yourself before you can save others, right? And maybe I take that to another level, but it will always make sense to me. It's me first. When I do me first, I always use the oar in the water. You heard that one? Oar in the water. I quite like that one to remember. and that's ownership, accountability, and responsibility. And for me, those three words, ownership, accountability, responsibility, bring my mind on track they seem to bring me into some form of focus. Because whether I like it or not, I am thinking about other things, I'm distracted, I'm moving to something else. Whereas when a bit like a meditation sort of system, I use oar in the water in order to keep me moving and progressing in a stream that's upstream. Going downstream doesn't really matter. And oar is required to navigate me. It helps me go upstream, it helps me go downstream. It makes no difference. To go against the current, with the current, and oar will serve me quite well. And so ownership, accountability, and responsibility are all less useful blame others. So back to what me. And it always brings me to things like, what more can I do? What do I have control over? Not what they should be doing. I want you to do this. You need to do that. You should be doing this. Those are all others' responsibility. My responsibility first is me, center that, and then using those same words, I can, by mentoring that, see how that influences someone else. By me sharing what I'm accountable for, what I'm taking ownership of, what I'm responsible for, is a way of communicating and sharing reasonably accurately what I will be doing. And then there's gaps. Now there's this left. There's this bit. And if everybody's doing those three words individually, then collectively, we're probably going to be reasonably progressive at some point or another. So it serves quite a powerful, because for me anyway, when emotion and when things start building up, when I use that oar in the water stuff, ownership, accountability, responsibility, it calms me down. Calms me down from information I'm hearing which I'm not liking. Better anyway. I'm never going to be perfect at when I hear information I don't like. If something's, what's a good one that I had recently? At the company that I work with, I'm reasonably high up there, and I hear information that makes me instantly feel sickly. It feels and it's just information that's come into my ears because I've built up enough sitting here going, well, I'm comfortable with this. That's going to affect this. This is going to happen. It's coming into my mind as this information's coming through. And that's just hearing the news on something. There can be, what's interesting about that is obviously we can have that news and it feels like it's going to affect me. Potentially, it's the potential to affect me. So, a plane can crash in China and killing hundreds of thousands of people. Yeah. That news didn't disturb me, unless I know someone that's over there, right? So it's that sort of stuff. So when you get that stuff happening, and then the reality is, those are the situations that matter the most, because those are the ones you're going to start making decisions from. And now we've got to sort of block out the part that the news has come in. Instantly, my insecurities come up, my ego, my vulnerability, all that, the uncomfortableness sits there that I've got to process and work through without affecting me, and then make a decision on that information. What's the decision? To right, I'm going to not do that now, But like going to the doctors, I suppose, and they measure you and say, well, if you don't do that, you're going to die next month. Right? I'm not going to have that pizza I was going to have in about 10 minutes. It's that type of feeling. I just want the feeling to go away. And so, in my opinion, my mind's good enough to go, after 10 or 20 minutes of hearing that information, it's good enough to start. Let's just find something in there that goes against that bit of information enough, like, oh, well, I've got $1,000 in the bank. I'll be all right. And that's enough. And now I feel better again, right? And then what's worse about that is that, oh no, now eating pizza again. Not for the first week, but soon after, I'm eating pizza again, So yeah. So there's that bit. And then where I was getting to with this cognitive bias, I read this article or I researched this thing, and one of the big ones is a self-serving bias. So as I pointed out there, most important to me first, all that stuff, and that seems to play into a bias of a self-serving type of bias. They go, protecting their ego and self-esteem is a self-serving bias. And where you would cherry pick feedback to support my high opinion of myself, and then overlook any faults that I would have, right? And I'm definitely in that camp, 100%. More when I was younger, obviously, but it's still there. And I say this, I worked a lot at it, so that just like judgment, and I will always have an ego. That bit is just a biological thing, as a word, but that's where the self-awareness is quite powerful. If if it's a self-serving bias that I just want to cherry pick feedback, or just want to focus on me having a high opinion of me, thinking how great I am and how awesome I am, all that sort of stuff, well, that requires evidence, that requires demonstration, that requires doing, that requires accountability, ownership, responsibility. That's not cherry picking. Because at some point through all that, you cannot cherry pick feedback. You're just not going to be able to. So it's the self-improvement part in the egocentric system will, in my opinion, you will only ever be able to work on some of that feedback or some of those opinions that you've been avoiding, blocking out, not considering, whichever. Well, you'll only ever get a certain way anyway. So asserting that you're awesome or great or thing, those are big words, right? But asserting that's where you're at mentally and physically, and then the symptoms or your actions don't support that, then you're not that, right? Me asserting or claiming I'm something, even as abstract as a word like being a god, I'm a god. It's an abstract word of my self-esteem and me suggesting something. Well, what evidence do you have? What actions, measurable data do you have to support that? So even something like I'm awesome, I feel great, those three words there's a measurement to ascertain that, where you're at. And I spend a lot of time doing that because it actually takes a lot of energy to look in the mirror and get yourself to those points. And the process in itself is very self-improving, because somewhere along there, vulnerability is going to be required. Support is going to be required. Emotions are going to be in there, whether you like it or not, if you've coupled it with self-improvement. Especially when you start learning, because now ignorance is starting to reduce. Because when you have awareness and you do the processes I talked about earlier, this is the thing I learned when I was 10 is it. Right? That's it. It's done. Whatever I learned, or whatever subject matter I was involved with at 10 years old, that's it. I was done, and I'm still thinking like a 10-year-old now. We would debate that and suggest, even if what you learned at 10 was fundamentally sound, to eat and breathe and drink water and drink at 10. What you were drinking and what you were eating, I didn't research that. There was no, that's what got served. That's what I ate. When I went out on my own, I just ate and drank those things. And then I liked this one, so I drank and ate that. You know what I mean? Well, symptoms will come from that. that you probably want some more education. And if you had one source, well, then without knowing it, 6 or 7 sources. Now, if all the other sources are the same, it's not the same. Learning from others that are doing the same thing, well, that's not learning either. Understand that. It's called confirmation bias. We got words for those. So realize it takes a lot. It takes a lot to have some diversity from the societal norms. Even if the societal norm is where you end up, it's the exercise of the mind and the brain and the breaking down of coming back to how you got there with anything. How did I realize what I'm doing now? How do I know what I'm doing now? Have I challenged what I'm doing that I know now that I'm doing? And what's my evidence? And I have a stack of evidence about how great and how awesome and what path and journey on a timeline that I'm on, because I employ these same pieces. Self first. I'm self-proclaiming based on evidence, based on feedback, and I'm not cherry-picking the feedback. I'm listening to the feedback and researching and questioning and seeing where that feedback takes me. And remember, it's only from a standpoint of me being here. And then now, how do I measure myself to be here? Based on what? And it's all based on what's the most important to me. So we can extend on the most important. Most important was me, about health, wellness, fitness, all that stuff. Because that's why. Well, as I mentioned before, that's how I can support others. And then who's the other person I want to support? What's the most important? Back to this. Most important to me? Well, we can use a big word called family. They're the most important. Which ones? Let's be specific. Well, I've been this. My children are the most important. Then it would make sense that I spend the most energy communicating, listening, reviewing, analyzing, using my data on them. Wouldn't it? Well, they're the most important to me. Yeah. That doesn't mean living their lives. That doesn't mean doing everything for them. I didn't say that. Just being very specific about what's most important to me. You know what happens when I do that? You know what happens? I communicate. I reach out to them. Got lots of technology here that I can do that with. So I do that. Not every day, not every minute. But the instant I start bringing myself back to what's the most important, sorted myself out. Every day, I sort myself out. Now who's next? My children. Touch points with them. Where's some accountability? Oh yeah, no, I Facebooked him. We had a chat on FaceTime. I caught up with her. I had a chat with her. Not every chat's exciting and groundbreaking. I listened to the story about her week from something, whatever it may be. Why? Because they're important to me. I've been criticized for, not because it's their birthday, not because it's frickin' Valentine's Day or any other frickin' day of the year. I do it because it's what's most important to me, right? And so I make it. I'm able to bring that into my frontal thing, or Or maybe I'll say, well, then that's not true. Because when something's the most important to you, it doesn't make sense that if it's the most important to you, why aren't you using it regularly? There must be some sort of, I hear it often, this, family is the most important. Okay, when was the last time you communicated to them? Oh, no, but they know they can come communicate to me. Oh, right. So they know they can come to me. But they're very important to me. And they know they can come to me. It doesn't make sense. Sounds like an excuse. Sounds like a defense mechanism. A defense mechanism for avoidance. Defense mechanism for I don't know. And I guess I use these words to actually, most important is another way of accountability, ownership, and responsibility, because it's tough. It's tough to say these people are the most important to me and then go, where's your evidence? Where's your proof for that? Look, my kids lived in here and were living with me. And I say, they're very important when I go see them. Oh, because why? Because they're living in your house. That's not evidence. That's just a situation. The true effect is when they're not living with you, when you don't see them that often. You can argue, I miss it. I miss doing that. So you miss seeing them. Did you communicate to them or not? Although no, they can communicate. They can talk to me anytime they want. Got it. I got it. And look, that's just an opinion anyway. So we can break it down like that. So there's two things: health, then we talk on to people, really. So let's just use that as a people bucket, most important people. Then you can scale those through, and then you've got what I've got. Sorry, and I use the most important part, the people thing, in abstract relationships. That's relationships. And then I have the most important relationships, and then I have other relationships, friends, acquaintances, career, people at work, contacts. So how I rate myself with that. What evidence I have towards those. When was the last time I challenged my boss? When was the last time he challenged me? When did I support him last? When did he support me? All those sort of scary words. Takes a lot of energy. What measurement do I have on that I was vulnerable, or that I was that I made this important, that I listened to his issues? Did I open up on issues to allow him to share his issues? Right? Because I have to practice that with my children. They're most important to me, so I open up on my issues. I share my vulnerabilities. I share the good, the bad, the ugly. And they make their mind up to that. And then if they share stuff with me, I take that on board too. So that takes a lot of practice. So the relationship part, lots of energy in there. And so And so those are the reasons, right? Just on those couple. Those are the reasons why the energy I put into learning and self-awareness and self-development and progress is because the better I am at all that stuff, the better off everyone else is. And most important, the better off people are that are connected to me. A lot better off than me just saying, hey, happy birthday, and that's it. And then see you next year. Well, not even see you, happy birthday next year. And if that's the sum total of the contacts I'm having with them, then I would question where I'm at. Doesn't mean I'm not living my own life, because I am. There are lots of dumb shit going on. I like to think they're progressive, but here we go again. I thought of this. If you're good at things, people want you to do those things, right? And just because you're good at it doesn't mean it was important. No, I'm an okay sort of squash player, play a bit of squash. No one cares. It makes not a lot of difference. Apart from I can ascertain it's good for me from a health perspective, getting my lungs up, playing other people, and it's interactive, and it's it makes me feel good. Okay, that's the sum total. Whether that's benefiting me any further than that can be a bias in itself, because with the energy and the feeling goods and all that sort of stuff of doing that act can be achieved doing this act. There can be 10 other things that would achieve what I just said in the act of playing that sport and what I get from it, right? What I get from it, from myself, and maybe what others get from it. You could argue that, oh, well, now I've got a lot of knowledge and experience in this particular subject that I'm able to sort of share with the community that are in there. Versus, well, let's say I start up and that up something, a sport. We'll stick with the sport to make it more comparative for whatever reason. It's still the timeline is the same. Time. Okay, time spent here versus time spent here. So if the time I'm spending here is this much, and I go, well, and I've got a list of things that I'm abstractly saying I get from it. I feel good from it. Well, I can feel good from freaking 50 things. So I could be doing this while I'm doing this. Feel good. Take that out. I'm good at it, and the people I know are here. Maybe this one here, I say, well, I don't know the people. That's a good thing. New people. So I've got new people here, existing people. Right? So there's people at this one. So there are people here versus here. Let's just go badminton. Playing squash here. Why don't I just go and start playing badminton right now? Right now. And instead of this, not as well as, chop that out and go do this. We can quickly say, but I know the people here. There's John J. Blah, 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 blah. There's 20 people here that all know me and think me. Wow, hold on. There's 20 people here that don't know me the same, that are different, that are got new stories, that are associated to different businesses, that are all sorts of stuff, right? So now we're going, well, wouldn't you be going here now then? Why are you still here? You see? You go, oh, well, I'm good at this game. I know the routine. I know how to play it. Maybe this one I don't. Even better. You're going to learn it. You're going to start here somewhere. You're going to be vulnerable. You're going to be seeing different people. Different people are connected to different things. Widens your audience. Already. Same timeline. The game itself. The game, it's not, I'm not getting as much. My heart rate's not getting up as much as in the badminton. Okay, play it longer. Play better people. Oh, but I can't hit the ball over, so it's not going for long enough. So there we start going, okay, now we can start building our biases into this. Got to make sure that these aren't using my biases. It's going, because I can't get used to this and thinking it, now I don't feel good. Remember up here, feel good, feel good. Now I don't feel good. Feel good, don't feel good. And even in here, you got some feel bads, but I can play it. I'm okay. I'll win this percentage. Maybe here, the feeling good's not quite all there yet. The comfortability's not there all yet. The environment's not the same. I'm looking because I'm comparing the two. When you're doing that, am I looking at the biases that I have? The energy it takes to meet other people. The energy it takes to learn these other bits, right? So that's, to me, where I'm at. The amount of energy it's going to take. And then here's another bias that starts coming in really fast. It's going, well, in 3 years, I'm going to be in the same position. That's a bias. Because, hold on, you don't know that. What we do know is if you've been doing this here for this amount of time, and in 3 years, unless your path was doing this and you're going, yeah, then okay, you could be this in the sport. But let's say we take the achievement part of the sport is you're going to have, it feels good, people are there. And don't get me wrong, there's new people coming all the time. So you're meeting new people within this realm too. So, don't think, this is over here and then I'm going to meet all these new people. Well, you're meeting new people here as well. So I could argue, you see what I'm doing here? I can start compounding through back to it of going, well, you can still get that here too. And that can be a bias in itself, right? Because the brain and the mind and the feeling I'm getting is to go join this. Why? There's so much to do. It's a different sport. You can do this. Do you want to join the same club, playing the same sport? Why? I did it. I've done that. And I had to have 10 good reasons. And even then, I struggled. But I did it, and it was great. It was great. At the end of the day, I ended up very similar. But the truth is, I met different people. There's different people down those clubs. Am I in contact with them now? No, but that may be me, and it probably is. I can still go contact them if I want to, right? But interesting enough, within the club realms and people realms, you don't have to belong to the club to go meet them. You can play the sport, you can go to other clubs and play them there and get to know people through the whole community within that sport. So the people thing, that's back on you, I think. And back to the ownership accountability, it's not going over here and saying, oh, well, I'll meet these people and this will happen and that'll happen. No. You will meet them, but whether you have your level of relationship with those people will probably be where they are with these ones. Now, what level of relationship do you have with these guys, these people? And how is it saying hello as you walk by? You get that here, you get that anywhere. Are you partners in a business with any of them in here? Why would you come here and now you're partners in a business with them here? Come on. Yeah, the banter, the talk. I think if you're outgoing and you're meeting all the people now, you'll be doing that anyway. And whether this is a bias or not, ultimately, very similar place. So I'm talking about the levels of engagement and the level of where you go to within that process there. And see, I did that. I ascertained that, worked it out, and my bias was stay where I am. You see, very quickly. And so I'm self-aware that there's a bias in that, and that doing that whole act, because the why is not good enough for me anyway. There can be a circumstance that can influence me. If someone here started playing badminton tomorrow, and they says, "Can you come down and help me and play?" and let's go, no, yeah, okay. Went down, played them, enjoyed it a little bit, and let's go again, enjoy it again, and then eventually, as I have, there was an influence there, there was a target there. Now then, to say which one will eventually be, will either of those progress me? I think that's debatable, actually. I think, unfortunately, you'll have to progress yourself. So if you improve your communication and if you improve your involvement, I'd argue that if you do that in the environment you're already in, and start practicing those bits, that's going to elevate you here anyway. As opposed to if you're here on a relationship level or people level within the club, within a group, going to a new group, you will still be here. Eventually. I think eventually you'll get, don't know each other, don't know the experience you got, you get to here. That's not, I don't think here will get you to here. Personally. Yeah. Whether that's a bias or not, no, I don't think it is. So I see that even in companies. You're in a company and it's got some sort of structure, and you're this. Years go by and you're still that. You leave the company and go here. If you are that can happen where the company doesn't have a thing. You may well have gone and then you go here and you be that. That can happen. Okay, but they have to have evidence for that. You have to show where in there that you're doing that genuinely. You get the opportunity to do it there. So that's growing with, but that's still, if I'm doing that here, if I'm growing within this shell here, if I'm playing the game, if I'm playing the sport better, I raise in this here or here. Now, if there's a lot of other guys that are really good here, I still raise my game here. Whereas there's no one here and I go here and I'm best in the club or something, you're still not. You're still those. So yeah. So that's the kind of comparative stuff I've got to challenge myself on, and then be willing to say, well, stuff that I know, stuff that I think I know, is there a cognitive bias to this? And then is the energy worth me reopening that and actually going through this exercise over here? And so that's what I'm doing all the time. I'm doing that all the time in my career, to be honest, right now. I'm challenging my biases, because ultimately I've been doing the one career pretty much my whole life. I've been promoted and had some stuff go on in that time span. To me, there's a bias there of me staying in this one industry. These insecurities there. There's my ego, my self-esteem, my loss, potential loss. What am I not going to have if I'm not? And I'm aware of that, but I'm still not. The thing is, at least I'm in a position where, well, if you spend some energy on it and you focus on it, then go somewhere else while you're in the other place. It's an excuse to think me just leaving will end me up somewhere different. I'm not convinced of that. And I've got lots of evidence with lots of humans to show that. There's value in being good at what you do. And even if it's quite specialized and it's quite specific, there's value in that. And just because you're not enacting other skills within this role, or let's say the market that you're in is shrinking, but you're very good at this, well, you're still very good at it. The market's shrinking, well, then you're the last man standing. That's still quite satisfying, actually, and it's still a challenge. A challenge in that, and the challenge is quite important. And that you might say, well, it's a bias for you, but not to go spend the energy over here and get yourself into that and start going here. That's true. But if you're self-improving, and if you're working on yourself and working through the biases in the business that you're in, I would say that's just as valuable as leaving that and going to this over here and starting here in an industry that you decide is what you've decided that industry is more secure. So there's no guarantees of that either. There'll be guys that have been in that industry for 50 years as well, generally. So what's the difference? So the difference does come back to if it's satisfying. Some of it will just be, does it exist? Is the role there for you? Is it an entry level thing? And so, don't get me wrong, I think there is an argument to being forced versus choosing, or feeling like you're forced, right? But I would argue that it makes whatever event happens, it's still your decision whether you feel you're forced or not. That's where self-awareness and even being subjected to cognitive biases from before, saying that it's fundamentally what they mean. It's because your social dynamics and because something's come up and you're pressured to make that decision, or an event happened, so you felt pressured. It was an emotional thing. Well, the event is the event. The decision should still have been void of those things. Well, then you needed more time. Then don't make the decision. But you have to make a decision now. What was the decision to make, right? So all of those that you might be doing in real time are valuable. And if you are practicing the all thing, the ownership, accountability, and responsibility, you're challenging these biases all the time. So whether I think I am or not, I'm developing my next role anyway, wherever I can go. That's the beauty of like developing yourself or developing others, even in the process of developing yourself. You become wanted, whether you think whether it's exercise now or not. The tricky thing is though is being paid for it, right? It's always been a dilemma for me. Is how do I be paid for being what I am, And that's ultimately why I'm still in the position I'm in. If I was being paid half what I'm getting now, would I move? Would I change what I'm doing? Not straight away, which is a good sign, right? That means I enjoy what I do, which I'll argue is freaking important. You're more likely to build blocks off things when you like to do it. I even have this debate, is that even if I was filthy rich, I would still quite like logging in and solving the problems that I'm trying to solve at work. Crazy, right? But it's true. It's a true statement. So, and maybe that can be a bias. It can be a bias too, and maybe that can be detrimental. Detrimental that I like it. Just like when I play squash, I've been playing it for a long time. Maybe that's detrimental. Overview. But I'm not sure about that because I've always strived to grow within it. Like it first, enjoy it, the challenge, all that stuff. And always looking to take it further or influence the people there further. If I can't get any higher, then I can influence others to get higher. In business, if I can influence the others around the team to have support and do tools, that's satisfying too, right? If the business achieves, then I achieve. That kind of mentality. So yeah, I think that's enough for today.